Emma, it's so lovely to have you with us today. Thanks for taking the time to do this little mini video. Emma Beswick is the Managing Director to Lifecode Gx, and they're one of our exhibitors at the European Congress for Integrated Medicine. And I just wanted to ask you a few questions about your company so that our viewers can learn a little bit about what you do. So can we start with, can you tell me a little bit about what Lifecode Gx does?
So we are a specialist nutrigenomics company. And what that means is, if you think of the word nutri and genomics, it's about how your genes interact with nutrition and vice versa. So we've all got different nutritional needs, although we are told by various regulators and governments that we all need certain amounts. That's not true. We've all got our unique needs, and nutrigenomics can help assess what those needs are, whether someone has a greater requirement for vitamin D or a certain form of vitamin A, for example, that can have very significant effects on health. So what we do is we look at genetic code. We look for very small differences in that code that are well understood in terms of the potential impacts of those differences. And the most important aspect of this is really that we can do something about the impacts of that genetic code change. So we're not going to alter the code. We're not aiming to do that. That is fixed, but we can read it and then we can understand it and convert that into actions with respect to nutrition and lifestyle to make sure that person's environment is supporting their genetics rather than working against it.
Okay, great. I find this subject fascinating. So somebody would come to you and sign up to have a report done, or how do they go about getting a report from you? And tell me a little bit about the kind of reports that you offer. I noticed on your website that it's not just one test that you offer, there's a number of different tests, right? So
yeah, absolutely. So we've evolved our test options over the years, and we have, at the beginning, I would say, a start of the whole kind of nutrigenomics exploration, a really perfect place to start is Nutrient Core. So that test basically looks at things like vitamins. So it looks at how genes affect your vitamin need. Some people just need a higher consistent supply of something like vitamin D. And if they don't get that extra supply, then their vitamin D levels will naturally deplete and be lower. And they could have consequences, multiple consequences actually in that case, like osteoporosis, like mood dips or depression, and also immune-related weaknesses in their biology, just due to that one nutrient, but also due to one small DNA change. So I would say the Nutrient Core is a perfect place to start because it's those building blocks. It's what we call the essentials. So if you haven't got a firm foundation, then the more complex kind of interaction of these nutrients and what they're used for, you kind of can't really start to understand that unless you've assessed whether those key nutrients are likely to be adequate or what you need to do to support them. And then the other aspects of that report, we talk about first do no harm as an original principle of medicine. And the report includes genes that determine whether you can digest certain foods, for example, or whether those foods might actually be harmful. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if we knew from an early age that eating gluten, for example, for one individual could be harmful, then we might assess that more deeply and prevent harm being caused in the first place. And so there are aspects of that report that look at, again, some fairly fundamental common variances that affect a lot of people, almost just to go, do we need to be concerned about this or not?
So it's
so
on
I
some
do.
level somewhat, it can be for preventative reasons. I mean, if you were seeing a nutritional therapist or something and you wanted to optimize your health, you would you'd be able to learn that if you needed more vitamin D, for example, as you just gave that example. And then other people, are you who else might come and use your report? So I mean, I guess if you go to see a nutritional therapist, it might be because you have a digestive problem, and some people go there just to optimize health. But what other kind of people come and use your tests?
So our tests are only available with practitioner support, and that's a decision that we made quite firmly, because we know that there are lots of genetic tests out there, but often the report is just kind of handed over to the individual and they don't really know how to make the most from that, and they might even misinterpret it. So our reports are available via practitioners, or as part of a package that includes practitioner support. So we don't ever want a situation where someone just has a piece of paper in their hand and they're confused or even quite disturbed by it. That we want to eliminate that scenario. So the kind of health professionals that we work with are nutritional therapists. They're also doctors. So we have some GPs, we have endocrinologists, psychologists, psychiatrists. Really, any health professional could use our reports, but they need to be trained in the science. They need to be trained in how to apply the report outcome in real life, to either assess that person's health or to decide what to do and how to support them. So I guess they can be used from either a preventative perspective. So really it's prevention, investigation, or optimization.
Mm-hmm.
And the prevention usually happens because someone has a family history of heart disease or cancer or Alzheimer's, for example, and they understand that there is a genetic component to this and they see it happening repeatedly in family members. So they want to make sure that they understand how they might prevent it. And so that's one aspect. Another reason may be that they are ill and they've tried the usual avenues in terms of investigating what the problem is and what to do about it, and maybe just not had much success with that. And so they're looking elsewhere. And again, genetic testing now, in terms of public awareness, is really improving and increasing at a rapid rate. So people have heard that this might be helpful and they're doing their own investigation and trying every avenue. And they're right, it absolutely can. It can really, really help to identify the root cause of an illness
and
rather
really
than
speed up
treat the symptom.
Speed up the recovery, one would think, if you rather than bumbling around. So
yeah, exactly. So it's looking at the mechanism or the driver of that illness. So it's digging as low, as deep as you can in terms of where does this start? Where that risk has always been there for that individual. It may never actually, in many individuals, happen. So all of these things aren't determinate. So it's not a case of you're going to find out some really bad news that you can't do anything about. It's that you're going to find out some information about you that is as personal as it can be in terms of your unique DNA, but you can do something to support any weaknesses that are shown as a result of that test.
And actually what's quite interesting about it is some of those weaknesses you might have guessed anyway, because you've got a sense of that, but it validates those weaknesses. But also the critical part, I think, is that nutrigenomics is about then presenting some tools of how you can help not maximize that sort of variance and
risk.
yeah, and that risk.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think of the variance as being like on a sliding scale a lot of the time, and it's as if your genetics position your activity in a certain way. So it's kind of like, bing, it's here. But for optimum health, you might really want that activity, that function to be dialed up. It's like turning up the volume. And we know how to do that through food and lifestyle. So,
you know, Emma, this is a subject that I personally could talk forever on, and we have had lots of conversations. But Emma is exhibiting with us at the European Congress for Integrated Medicine and will be on the stand. And for any of you that are interested to learn more, I mean, you obviously can make contact with Emma in advance, but you can have that face-to-face contact with her in November between the 5th and the 7th. In London. So and I feel we probably could talk forever. So
I'm just so pleased to be there and so looking forward to it, because I think with something like DNA, you want that eye contact. You want to know that you trust the person and that this is in safe hands. So for us, having that FaceTime with people in person is so important. So it's a fabulous event. I'm so looking forward to being there.
Well, and also what you can then help explain in person what makes you stand apart from some of those off-the-shelf tests that you mentioned kind of subtly that might not give you that follow-up. I think what it sounds like from Lifecode Gx support you through that process, so that actually you don't just get left with this information and not know what to do next. So it's in a very reputable...
That's such an important aspect.
Yeah,
very important. And you know, there are going to be practitioners at your conference and health professionals, and for some of those people this might be quite a new science. Others will have heard of it, and wherever they are in their knowledge and experience, we also support them with training. So that's another aspect of our work. We want to make sure those people feel confident in supporting their patients and their clients.
Oh, that's great. I didn't realize that. So wonderful. Well, good. Well, Emma, thank you for your time, and look forward to talking more.
Fabulous. Thank you, Bersha.